Hi, Josh.
Hi.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Great. Karibuni, karibuni. I think now we are live on Facebook. And yeah, I mean, this is session number 4, meeting number 4 of, I think, an exciting series that we have had. And I'm looking forward to having honest conversations, because for real, I don't know which other way of having such conversations. I don't know whether we can talk about pornography the way the church has been talking about pornography without losing our kids, if I may call it that. So karibuni sana, I am with Mark Duarte, and we'll be running the sessions with him. And so, yeah, karibuni. So Mark, introduce yourself, then I'll introduce myself. And then, yeah, we can get on. Mark, karibu. Okay, I guess. Mark, are you ready?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay.
I was connecting a charger to my laptop. Yes, I'm here.
No problem. Introduce yourself, then we can get on.
Okay. So for them that don't know me, my name is Mark Duarte. I am a husband, father, and I work with young people together at Nairobi Chapel South. And I have a youth initiative that I run called the Plug.
Hiya, karibu. Father of how many?
Yes.
Now that we are talking about where
3.
children are at.
3. Is the oldest is 8 and the youngest is 2.
So you're going to have, like I was saying earlier, it's a plus 10,
yeah.
So it will be 18 and 12.
Yes.
Yeah. So karibuni, my name is Shalom, founder of Retro Group, and excited about these conversations that we've been having. So I'm also very passionate about young people. I'm passionate about families working together. And so a lot of what I do day to day is to ensure that this process is working, to ensure that we are sharing tips, we are sharing war stories, because I would call these war stories for some of us, as far as parenting is concerned. And so today I'm looking forward to the final part of this series, but based on conversations that I've had with people outside of here, this cannot be the end. You know, we are supposed to look forward to whatever it is that we're going to continue doing. And so I run Retro Group. I write books on parenting. So I've written 3 books so far on connecting with the younger generation, and run programs such as parenting classes. I run youth training programs, you know, from leadership to life skills, and also sessions for kids who are younger, from the age of about 8, moving on to 18. And so this is something that I guess I breathe. For those of you who may know me, I breathe in and out of this daily. And pornography is a big thing that has been affecting the younger generation, which is why I feel we need to talk about it. And so probably what I can ask is, what are your thoughts about pornography? You know, just whatever thoughts come to mind about pornography. If you can share that on the chat or unmute yourself and just say what it is. Any thoughts on pornography? So Bev on Facebook is saying, looking forward to this conversation. It's important and needed. For sure. And the truth is, imagine we've been talking, Mark has introduced himself as working with young people and running the Plug Youth group on Instagram and all. And we talk about pornography with your kids, if I may call it that, and our kids every other time. And as you're thinking up your questions and figuring out what is what, one of the things I can say, I think it was this weekend or last weekend, I was talking to some young people, and I just threw out, like what today's flyer was saying, I threw out the notion or the idea that all young people today are learning about sex from pornography. And they were saying they don't watch porn. But when we got into what they watch, actually everything we're watching today is really soft porn. I mean, I don't think anybody can actually say they don't know anything about porn and be telling the truth. And so they've been learning about sex from pornography. Even if they're not going to Pornhub to learn, they're learning from the stuff that they're watching. And so they asked me a very interesting question. If I say that we should be heterosexual, and this whole story of waiting until you're married to have sex and all that other stuff that we like telling young people, where do heterosexuals learn how to have sex from? So I don't know whether any of you can answer that question. We like attacking gay community, we like attacking young people. Where do married couples learn how to have sex? Mark, don't laugh. Ebu, answer whether you know, answer if you know that. If you know the answer to that question.
I don't know the answer to that question.
But now, if I was to ask for help, okay, can somebody help me? Wendy, help me answer that question. You know, like, where do heterosexual people learn how to have sex?
From Dr. James Dobson's books.
So
after you get married, now you read those books.
So after you get married,
deep denial or what?
After you get married, grab a hold of a James Dobson book, and he will tell you the ultimate position. He will tell you the time. He will tell you, you know, is he able to describe in graphic detail? I doubt.
Well,
some
they're sanitized.
Some of us never
they're
read
sanitized.
They're sanitized.
But to be okay, on a serious note, because that was just a joke, it kind of used to come up in high school. Like for me, what I remember is I was a good Christian girl in most of high school. Then I went to do A-levels, and A-levels was a whole different world because we had all these international students from everywhere with different exposure to different things. And life became about who can dress sexy and who looks good and who can dance like I don't know who in which video.
Yeah.
And it became about people having boyfriends and who was with their boyfriend and which corner were they at and which level did they get to. So that's where now you come to learn that there are levels and there's, you know, different whatevers of intimacy. I don't even know what to call them. Not just, you know, before sex was what we learned in class 6 in biology. The very scientific, very school-like procreation type, you know, such words.
Yeah.
But then now as teenagers, it became real. And I mean, people are talking and because of like being in a school experience with people from all over, that quote unquote sanitized environment was no longer there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see, the thing about the sanitized environment, because of that sanitization, people were left dissatisfied, if I may say that. You know, there was some sort of dissatisfaction, and therefore guys started looking for information.
Yes.
And so I think in one of the earlier sessions, I had shared that one of my first exposures to pornography was a Playboy magazine that was brought to me when I was like 9 years old by my younger sister. And so at that point in time, all you're seeing is, you know, naked bodies. They're not necessarily doing something, but you start getting familiar. But the difference between then and now is really around availability. Yes, there were books. I think for those who read romantic books, they tried to picture what those nice guys on horseback you know, tell her they used to ride the bear horseback, if I remember correctly. And, you know, when they're kissing somebody, the girl, and you're trying to imagine what does that look like, they would experiment. And then anybody who experiment and scored more boys or more girls would come and share what? Their experience and what worked, what did not work, you know, and that just kept growing and developing. So some people are saying that books are some of the places that guys got information from. Others are saying music sites. There's Barbara Catland, Mills and Boone, you know, and you learn as you grow and as you go, and as whoever is experimenting first basically ends up sharing the information. But then and now, difference between whenever then is for you and now, the biggest thing is accessibility. So whereas we used to get a magazine and hide it, or get a book and, you know, secretly tear pages and share it however we are sharing it, experiment secretly. Now the thing is live, it's open, it's available. All a kid needs is a phone, and they have access to pornography. You know, they don't need to be hiding documents and things like that. And so it has become much easier, and that's just access. Now, if we look at what pornography is, without even going to what the actual definition of pornography is, I want to look at it from the point of addiction. Is that the reason why it is that addictive is because of the pleasure that it actually gives. So whether we like it or not, we must admit that there is going to be pleasure from pornography, but it starts with pleasure and then becomes something else. So there's a book I really like called The Porn Trap. And again, I think those of you who have registered here on email, I'll send a copy because I don't know how else. I'll send you what the title is and all, then you can look for it. But this book basically gives a breakdown and shares like essential tips on how to escape the trap of pornography. So rather than go into all the porn that we can talk about, the sites and the places where it's found, what to do, what not to do, and things like that, first, the chemistry of porn is that it's a private affair, and it has always been a secret thing to do. And what happened with the secrecy is that once you're keeping something secret, then you end up feeling isolated. So there's places where they say that the problem with getting used to pornography, people get angry, they get depressed, they feel ashamed, they're irritable, they're unable to sleep, because you see, you're hooked and trying to get more and more of this fix. But unfortunately, the more you view porn, the sicker it becomes. So the more you try crazy adventures and crazy things. So many people have said that the more they've watched pornography, the more they've looked for things like child pornography, which is pedophilia and things like that, the more they've had affairs outside of their relationships, the more they've had anonymous sex, you know. And I think some of them are people who are familiar, and others are just, I don't care who you are, let's just go have sex kind of thing. And then we have sweet names like fuck buddies and things like that. And those are the things that even our children are following online because they're looking for tips, which means that we need to be having real conversations. When we tell our kids porn is bad, without asking them what they're looking for in the pornography, then we're not able to have a wholesome conversation. Because whenever we say something is bad, a young person is likely to ask why. A young person is likely to ask what if, and they're going to try it out to see whether the badness is theirs themselves. I mean, whether the badness is as true as you're saying it is, because they want to test it themselves. It's a whole story of don't look down. The minute you're told don't look down, what do is look down. So don't watch porn, don't watch that thing without helping somebody know the why, then you're in trouble. And so I feel as though that's the main approach we need to take. Back again to today, we're talking about pornography, pedophilia, and other perversions. You know, perversion is like a distortion from the norm. But again, as I was having this conversation with different people, somebody asked me, how do you decide what is perverted? So I don't know. For you guys, how do you decide what is perverted? Anybody with a clue what how you would describe perversion to, like, especially like those of you who said you have children that you'd love to have this conversation with, how would you describe perversion to them?
I guess the simplest way I can think of is what I would say seems or feels unnatural. And by unnatural, I mean like, to my mind, something you would not say. If I'm thinking to do something, and if I'm thinking that if my mom saw me doing this something, they would be ashamed, embarrassed, I would feel weird about it. I think that's where it starts. I think that's where, because it's about that secrecy, that hiddenness. What's the motivation for the hiding?
Yeah.
And is it bringing about a positive or a negative, feeling? So if like when it's a secret and it's a secret to surprise you on your birthday, there are positive emotions involved.
Yes.
That's why I'm just it's difficult to explain, I think.
Yeah. But I like the example that you're bringing about the feelings that somebody gets. Anytime we've talked to kids about porn, they know when they have watched it. They know when they have been exposed to it. They're able to tell that they feel something off. So, for instance, like when talking, because I also do counseling, when talking to young people, they say they were not sexually abused, but they say that a relative touched them. They have that back and forth of, they're not even sure. They know something feels off, but they're not calling it what it is. So as long as it's veering away from the norm, your body somehow knows that you have been violated. But unfortunately, is that if you don't do anything about it, or now, for instance, if your children are not able to break it down into something that they understand, then one of the worst things that happens is that they go looking for more of it. Why? Because when God created sex and sexuality, it was meant to feel good. So the minute they feel good, they wonder. At some point, they may ask themselves, what's wrong with me? But then if the answer they get is nothing is wrong with you, then they go experimenting. And some of the statistics show that basically in terms of daily internet searches, at least 30% is on pornography. But then when it comes to downloads, about 35% of all downloads are about porn. Why? Because people are looking for some of these answers. So when it comes to what is perverted, it's something off the norm, whatever your norm may be. Now, that's where the battle is coming for the battle against our kids, and what I like calling the next generation, is that we are trying to normalize everything. So we have support groups that call themselves virtuous pedophiles. I don't know whether you've heard of them, but basically virtuous pedophiles are people who are attracted to kids, would love to have sex with kids, but have not yet engaged in the sexual activity. And when it comes to that conversation of how can you then be a virtuous pedophile? And they said it's the same as being a virtuous heterosexual person. You're interested in members of the opposite sex, but you're not having sex with them. So, you're maintaining it's called what? Chastity, the same way. And so the more we try to normalize some of these things, the more, of course, we are going to get right off. But then here's the thing about pornography. It doesn't just affect the person. Pornography is not a solo affair. It can be done solo. It's done in secrecy. It's done privately, but it is not a solo affair. Many homes have been destroyed by porn, unfortunately. Is that men have gotten into pornography, loved it enough, gotten more and more perverted because they're experimenting with different things. And from there, they have veered off their original commitment to the marriage. It's not just men. Women have gotten hooked to pornography. So we know lots of women who are actually staying stuck in a relationship, if I may call it stuck, because they're satisfying their needs with porn. So you end up seeing these relationships that look like they're working, but they're just shells because they're being sustained by other stuff. There's somebody commenting on Facebook and saying perversion is an obsessive behavior towards anything, right? So you can be obsessed towards whatever. That is veering you off the norm, veering you off something that you should be thinking about. But now we look at the guy who gets hooked to pornography, loses his family in the process. Woman gets hooked to pornography, has a shell of a family in the process. Because we're talking about parenting specifically around these topics, please understand that your children will catch you watching porn. Never ever think that your porn affair is secret. Some of the war stories I know, there's a place where we were having a conversation and we were talking about over-sexualized children. And this was with parents of 7 to 10-year-olds, you know, they're just in the lower classes of primary school. And one of the kids had come to school and propositioned another child. So they wanted to have sex with one of the other children. And she knew exactly how it needs to be done. And the poor boy was just, you know, he had no idea what hit him. But when we dug in a little more as to where is this girl getting these ideas from, we discovered that she had been watching pornography. But where is a 7-year-old getting pornography from? Dig a little deeper, she was getting it from her 20-something-year-old auntie, like 21, 22-year-old auntie. However, now when everybody went to attack this auntie, she actually said, actually the porn I'm watching belongs to my big sis, who's the mother to this child. So the mom had managed to hide her porn, had allowed access to somebody who is in her mind adult enough to be watching. Her own child had ended up watching that pornography, gotten interested enough to go and try it out in school, and she had been called. So I put it to you, I mean, if you are called to your child's school, they're 7, 8, 9 years old, and they are overtly propositioning young other kids in school, what would you say, knowing that you also watch porn? You see, at that point in time, the parent had no idea the porn was coming from her. So by the time you're coming down heavy on a kid, do a little digging yourself to find out where is this child coming from. But first and foremost, look in the mirror, because if you yourself watch pornography, expect your children to watch it at some point. One of the ladies who has talked about her experience with pornography got access to it for the first time from her dad's car. And what she had done, she had been told by the dad to go and put some things in the car because they were going somewhere. And then she went and saw some cards. And one of the cards had, you know, I mean, it was playing cards. So there's some cards that are pornographic in nature. And so she saw the cards, looked at it, got curious, hid them back exactly where she had seen them, and decided she's going to be a bit more curious about it. By the time, she says that happened when she was about 9 years old. By the time she was a teenager, she was fully into pornography and looking for kinkier things as she went along. And so what I'm trying to say is, before we figure out what to do with our kids, we need to figure out what we are doing with ourselves. Because for most of these kids, the first source of pornography is their parents. Yeah. So I don't know, however, wherever this may be hitting, if you yourself have watched porn or interacted with porn, or, you know, have no limits as far as some of the stuff that you have at home is concerned, then you're likely to be the first doorway, right? So now, when it comes to, let's say you discover that your child is already getting addicted to pornography and you're not the source. So let me put it this way. If you're the source of the pornography, first seek help before you try to help your child. I've got a friend, Ernest Wamboye, who runs programs that basically help men get out of the porn addiction cycle. And so if you can look for Ernest Wamboye online, he's able to, I think he's even got a class that's starting soon. It is nice and private, it is free, and they just help men walk out of that porn trap, so to speak. I do not know whether there's a place for women, because I think women are amongst the people who keep that addiction very, very private. And you know, they manage their satisfaction quietly, and they make sure they're not ruffling feathers at home. So I don't know whether there's some sort of support group for women yet. I haven't heard of one as of now. But if you're the adult struggling with pornography, you yourself need to think what you need and seek help, you know, as you go along. But then when it comes to kids, and we need to support them. So let's remove ourselves. We are not the source of the porn. Then we need to help them understand how to choose friends and who they're interacting with. One of the experiences I had with kids sharing porn, they were sharing it on a small SD card. You know the size of an SD card. It's, you know, fingertip size. And what they would do is put the SD card into a phone. Somebody goes and watches, then, you know, and mounts the SD card, gives it to the next person. So when as adults, we try to look for what's going on, we couldn't find it because it's not on anybody's phone. Yeah, yet we knew that they were watching, of course, until they got caught. But talk to your kids about the practical places where they will get caught in all of that, right? And that is the physical space. The other space that people end up getting caught is the stuff that they invite into their minds, if I may call it that. One of the questions I asked is, where are we learning about sex? How do you learn how to have sex? As long as your kid is asking that question, they will start watching certain things. There are lots of groups on Instagram on masturbation, on porn, on experimenting with some of these things. The groups are there that are helping our children answer these questions, if I may call it helping, because we are not answering them. And so one of the best conversations is to talk to our kids about where they could be getting desensitized from. The music they're dancing to. Sometimes even the music is not as bad as the dance itself. There's one girl who I was interacting with, and then I noticed she posted a dance that was, you know, I mean, it was really, really suggestive. And so when I approached her, I asked her, why did you post this particular video? And she says, you know, she likes the song. And so she was just dancing to it the way she knows how to dance to it. I'm usually not very tactful when having some of those conversations. And so what I told her is, it looks like you're having sex with some ghost somewhere. And believe you me, I know because I've had sex. And so those of us who have already had sex need to be telling our kids, I know what I'm talking about. Because that's how you came about. I actually had sex, you know, and that's how you came about. So that you normalize what is normal as opposed to leaving them to figure out how could it have happened and to experiment. So now ask them and ask yourself, probably, I think I'll talk about now both ways. You know, when you feel like you're hooked to porn or you're wondering what to do, first and foremost, figure out the impact it's having on you. Because if you don't decide to quit, then yeah, quitting will be difficult. Figure out how you got there in the first place. It may have started as an escape. Understand that even for your child, they could have started as an escape. They could have started out of boredom. Then look at, once you see the effect it has had on you, try and solve that problem. Because it lowers esteem, it makes many people feel dirty. Try and heal some of those issues before trying to say, I need to get rid of my porn. Yes, get rid of it, but at the same time, you need to replace, because nature abhors a vacuum. You can't leave that space empty and expect you're just going to sit around and nothing comes in. I think there's somewhere in the Bible that talks about when, you know, one demon leaves and you leave the place empty. Pastor Mark can help us with that one. 7 more come in. So you need to expect that if you don't have a plan, and if you're not equipping your child with a plan, then it's going to get worse. So first thing, when you discover your child is exposed to pornography, is using pornography, first and foremost, press pause, find out, how did we get here? Find out what need is this porn satisfying? You know, then discuss what's the power of pornography on you? What's the power on pornography? Yeah. And many people say that porn is the best sex they've ever had because of the rush that they get. And once a kid starts their sex life at such a high, those of us who have basically had sex know that you can't maintain it at that level. And they need to understand that's not how it works. I was teaching Sunday school. Okay, I teach Sunday school occasionally. When we were doing the physical sessions, I was teaching a class on sex and sexuality, and we are comfortable enough for those kids for them to ask me questions like, how does a guy last so long? How can a guy have sex for so long? So when I was asked that question, and it is in a Sunday school setting, I did not answer how can a guy last so long because I'm not a guy. I wouldn't know how a guy lasts so long. One of the things I knew for sure is that boy was watching pornography, because it's the only way he would know that a guy is having sex for hours. And when these kids are looking for that sense of identity, they want to do what they're seeing. So the problem is not to fight porn, is to try and help these kids get a sense of identity. Because if what will define them is going on and on like a rabbit, for hours upon hours, humping everything on their way, then that's what they're going to use to define their identity. So I'd say, let's help our kids, like choose or get like a better identity than going out there to look for it. Yeah. Any questions so far? Or comment, Romak?
So for me, as you're talking, what I was thinking is what I normally came to find out, especially for boys, is that nowadays it's like a passage of rights. Like I think because we have a Christian background and we want to help our kids not to get into this place, the honest truth is that they will encounter it.
Yeah.
And they will watch it. They will consume it. The challenge is whether or not they'll become addicted and then become dependent, and then have behavior changing because of what they consume. Because pornography is very addictive, and it's a slow fade. It never happens just once that you get into an addictive circle. You just start slowly by consuming small doses. And the thing that it does is that you get numbed to what you are used to. So what happens is that you might start with a movie or a book, and it had a sex scene. So you get interested with wanting to see more, wanting to enjoy more. So the moment you are now on the quest of looking for more, you will find it, and then you enjoy that level you've gotten to, and then pretty soon that becomes normal. So even this, to go to like defining what perversion is, no one wakes up and decides to be perverse. It's a slow fade. So
exactly.
So many people I know want to just watch like a normal heterosexual scene where it's a man and a woman, and that is it. But you soon realize that does not turn you on anymore. That does nothing for you. So you're looking for, okay, I need to, and the more the internet has a way of giving you what you want. So but
the algorithms and things is
yes, it's called like a black hole. You just start entering and you're just swallowing. You're wondering how you're getting into. So the more information or the more things you're looking for, you now encounter what now is hardcore porn. Once you encounter hardcore porn, you don't have you've opened up yourself to, it is your fantasies versus what you can get online.
Yeah. And
So
therefore
you'll
it
find
feeds your
that,
fantasy.
yeah. Yes, it feeds your fantasy. It feeds your imagination, whatever you can imagine in your head. And it gets to, now when it gets to like now perversion. So perversion is a deviation from what is normal. So if now you're watching, let's say, lesbian sex, or you're watching So the problem with now with pornography, it's now they have put categories and everything. Anything that you would want to get your, it's like what do you call it? A la carte, like
the menu is open. It's a
there's
buffet.
a menu and there's anything open for you to encounter. That's why last week I was also talking about that most of our societal problems with the LGBT thing is really fed by pornography. And it's there's no judgment, there's not, like, anything you want to watch is available. People have gone through what you've gone through, and they have practiced, they have styles, they have tools of the trade, anything that you want to feed your imagination with, it is already available. So what happens is that when a kid is thrown in, their mind is developing. It's at a very young and so it's like giving cocaine to a 6-year-old.
In fact, one of the things they say, the disadvantage, the power, some of the power that porn has, you see, like when you give cocaine to a 6-year-old or whoever, you'll take that, you'll inject it, or you can tell how it's coming in. You can rub some of these things on your skin, you can swallow, etc. Pornography gets into your senses.
Yes.
And therefore goes straight to your central nervous system.
That is even worse, because you're hitting a high quicker than someone who's trying to get a high.
Exactly. There's a kid who used to be interested in sports, and then switched from sports to pornography. And it was a very slow, slight transition. But he said that the rush you get from pornography, it doesn't beat around the bush, it gives you the whole bush. Direct. Nothing. It's a power trip like no other. It's a rush that you can get. You cannot get such a rush from what is it called? Mixing drugs, for instance. If you are saying drugs are bad, right? The rush you get from pornography is something else altogether. But another reason why I feel as though porn is not going away is because we think it is good. We think, and unfortunately, this is something I've heard from a few married couples, that they need pornography to make their sex life richer. And some of them feel like as long as we are watching it together, then it's okay. We are getting those ideas.
And I think that's what I was saying, that no one wakes up and gets into perversion. So let me be a bit graphical in terms of this. So any hardcore porn thing you will watch, you will never see the woman being adored or being treated in a manner that is special to a woman.
They are
always the object. They are always being objectified.
But it's something interesting you're bringing up.
Is it me who's hung among? Yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay, I think my internet inaleta shida kidogo.
Okay, yeah. So I was saying something interesting that you're bringing up.
So I was saying
the woman is objectified.
So yes, I can't hear. I think I have internet issues. So
okay, no problem. So I mean,
if I can pick up,
if I pick up from what you're saying about the woman being objectified, the other thing that we need to note is that porn has different effects on women and men. When a guy watches porn, he tries to perform like he is seeing, right?
Yes.
And gets that sense of power. Women, on the other hand, end up feeling inadequate because they're not being able to satisfy their real life partners the way they're seeing the chick on the screen satisfying their partner, or what they assume is satisfaction. And so even when people think that they're watching, there's some good out of it, it ends up getting them to a point where everybody is left dissatisfied, because the expectations of the guy on himself and his partner are going to be unrealistic. The expectations on the lady on herself are going to be unrealistic. And I don't even think it gets any better when it becomes like lesbian sex or gay sex, right? And then from there, it just goes sliding down, because the more you experiment with stuff, the tastier you want something, the more risque you want to become and all. And so you keep pushing it down, right? But here are some effects of porn. Here are some effects of porn. Porn basically can conflict with your values, beliefs, and life goals. So you could be having a direction, and this is something that is harming young people more than older ones, because older ones sometimes are already set in some way, but especially young people may have certain life goals. They're being detracted by pornography. So there's conflict in that. Porn will compromise your ability to be honest and open in a relationship, because it brings all these secrecy things. You will not be able to be open and honest. You know, nobody wants to, especially if the relationship is like, for some of us Christian, as far as the foundation is concerned, you want to keep it secret. And therefore, when you start keeping one secret, you keep many secrets. Then porn competes with your partner. Porn is so unreal that you'll never get a real life partner who can match up. And so we have our daughters going and experimenting because they've watched pornography. Then they go get a real life boyfriend. Then the boyfriend doesn't measure up to what they have watched on porn. Then they start calling him a loser. But we are not telling them that the guy on the screen is being paid to, to perform. You know, we are not telling them that by the time they're watching their pornography, there have been enough cuts and take twos and take threes and take fours. You know, we are seeing something that has been engineered to get us hooked. So it will always compete. The chick in pornography will always be more beautiful than you are, because it's her business to make sure that that happens, right? But now here's the other thing. The more we think that porn is causing us to have better sexual desire, which is what especially married couples or couples who are, you know, having relationships say, it actually causes you to have sexual functional problems. You're so used to getting the rush from pornography, you can't get it up. For a guy, you can't get it up naturally, all right? Then the other thing it does, it starts shaping your interest. What we're talking about now, why it's sliding down to perversions, because now your interest starts becoming destructive. There are those who will go after prostitutes. There are people who become rapists.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's not interest. It's what turns you on.
What do you mean?
So the normal thing that would turn you on. So maybe a normal, like you're married, you're with your wife or husband, that would be okay. Not because you have been numbed, that has become too normal. You're craving for something higher to turn you on. So it's not just interest, it's that ability to get there. It is something different that does that, and it's something perverse that does that for you.
Yeah, because it has to keep getting perverse.
Yeah.
And then now you now need to start looking for a way of surviving these effects, right? So here you are, you spent the whole night. Let me just give an example. Here's a kid, let's call him a 19-year-old, and so he has spent the whole night watching porn, and he needs to be awake the next day in class. What does he do? Go and ask for some drug that's going to stimulate him to keep him awake during class. Right? A kid, a girl, let's call her 20-year-old, somebody has been using pornography, is feeling very bad about stuff, so she wants to forget, gets into depression. What does she do? Look for drugs to just basically drown her, get herself addicted to alcoholism, get herself addicted to other things, you know, even shopping, by the way. So we can have, let me call them innocent in quotes looking addictions that are covering up a bigger problem, right? And then of course, the things we're talking about, the whole family work, legal and spiritual problems. Because in some cases, you don't want to go getting caught having gay sex in Uganda. You're going to be in so much trouble, for instance, you know? So there's legal issues in some countries. There's places where you're safe and not. And all of those are basically issues and, yeah, so somebody has commented and said it can also lead to drug use, yes, to sustain that rush. Because sometimes you need to maintain, and like Mark is saying, maintain things at a certain level. So we've talked about coming into contact as kids. Two things happen. When you experience porn as a kid, depending on the conversations you've had about sex with your parents before, you will either continue or stop. I think it was in the first session, we basically talked about where we ourselves started from. If we think back about that. Now, if you have made your child feel ashamed about sex, they're likely to go into hiding. They felt shame about getting turned on. They felt shame about, like for boys especially, like when their penis gets an erection and you're hitting their hand and whatever. Our reactions as the parents, our reactions as the grown-ups, catching our children with porn usually makes matters worse, right? Because we don't react in a way that will explain to them, we react in a way that we are attacking them, making them feel dirty. So what happens? Moral of the story for them, lesson learned is, let us keep this hidden. Don't ask, don't tell. Go do what you want, it stays secret. Hatutaki ifikie wazazi. And therefore the thing continues. So there's some kids who are asked, questions like, how old were you when you first saw pornography? Majority of them were between the ages of 6 and 9. I'm just looking at some statistics higher. Then they were asked, what are the circumstances you are in? Were you alone or with someone else? That one was almost like a half-half. Yeah, there were those who were alone because they just bumped into it for one reason or another. And then there were those who were with somebody else. So they were exposed by someone else. There's one book I was reading. I bumped into a book that some kid had bought. And the boy was interested in dressing like a girl. And so he went and bought a women's magazine. Then his father caught the magazine under his bed because he used to hide his magazine, the women's magazine, under the bed. It wasn't pornography. It was a Vogue magazine. And so the father came and found it and started blasting the boy. But in the boy's mind, he asked himself, what was dad doing looking under my mattress? And his answer to himself, again, remember all of this happening in his mind, his answer to himself is, dad must have been looking for his own dirty magazines. Because this kid already knew that the dad has some magazine somewhere. Because how would dad come think to look for something under my mattress? He must have been looking for what he also hides. So the circumstances. Then what type of porn did you encounter? Many of these children have encountered, there was a time when it used to be photography, but now here they're saying a lot of the type of porn was 3-dimensional, meaning that it's in video format. So whereas I may have seen a photograph of a naked girl on a Playboy magazine, my daughter is likely to have watched the entire sex scene or a piece of the sex scene. So we are encountering different things and therefore our reactions need to be different. Then the other question was, what was your immediate reaction? How did you feel? Were you excited, confused, anxious, ashamed, intrigued? All of those stuff. And they look at scared, sexually aroused, disgusted, angry, delighted, sad, etc. How your child feels depends on the conversation you have had so far. Which is why it is so important to start having these conversations. Mark, you're saying your youngest is like 3 years old. Between you and your wife, a sex conversation needs to be starting now, and not pornography conversation, a boundaries conversation. So that slowly by slowly, she's starting to understand herself. Slowly by slowly, she's starting to understand how to get affirmation from the right places, So by the time she's getting exposed, she already knows who she can go to. She knows at least an element of her values and things like that. Because immediate reactions are found to be influenced by previous sexual conversations or lack thereof. Equipping parents on talking about sex to your children is another whole conversation. Today we are talking about pornography and its effect. Reactions are based on previous sexual conversations that the parent may have had. So as opposed to worrying about pornography, worry about the conversations you have had so far. They need to be age appropriate, they need to be gender appropriate, they need to be exposure appropriate, because the first thing to do is find out what do your kids already know and then build it up from there, because you don't want to be exposing them to too much before they're ready. Kids were asked, did you talk with others about your experience? If so, what do you recall about their reaction, right? So there's part 2 of this question. Did you talk with others about your experience? So for those who said yes, they were asked, what do you recall about their reaction? Now, if a kid sees porn and goes and shares it with a friend of his, and the friend is excited and encouraging, they're likely to continue watching. If, on the other hand, this kid watches porn, goes and tells a friend about it, and the friend tells him don't, then he's likely to reduce a bit more because they listen to their peers at that point in time. So again, to protect your child from this kind of traction, have them hang out with the right people so that they're getting the sort of right influence as they go along. A 7-year-old may not necessarily be able to choose the right 7-year-old, but 7-year-olds don't hang out on their own. That's why we need to be bonding with our kids and all, so they can have an adult interacting with them. So the only person they're interacting with is not just an age mate, because then you help them discuss some of those things. So if the reaction, if the kid went and told the parents and the parent beat them up or things like that, then it affects what their next step is going to be. And we had said that earlier. Now, there are those who decided they're not going to tell. You know, they got it, they got exposed, and they decided they're not telling. So they were asked, how did it feel to be carrying this secret knowledge? Remember, this is happening after they have already confessed to be in pornography. And one of the reasons, one of the answers they gave to carrying this secret knowledge is the fact that they felt they had to hide from people. So there's hiding information, and then there's hiding yourself. When a kid has information to hide and they don't know, they're so used to being an open book, one of the things they'll do is hide themselves physically. So once your children are starting to avoid you or avoid interacting with you, dig a little deeper. I'm not saying that they're watching pornography. I'm saying that if you note a change in behavior, try and find out why has their behavior changed? Why do they no longer want to hang out with you or do certain things that they were doing before, even with their siblings, right? They were asked, did your first encounter with pornography make you want to see or search out more of it? Most of them said yes. Why? Because it was incomplete. So they wanted to see how the story ends. Again, children get deeper and deeper into this because of curiosity. So if you're having conversations with them and they bring you part 1 of the story, please help them understand the whole story. If you don't explain satisfactorily, they're actually going to go and dig in more. Now, some of them were asked, is there anything that bothers you about your first exposure to pornography? Yeah, such as how young you are, the type of porn you saw, situation you're in. Do you wish things would have been different? Those who got exposed through their parents, 100% wish it would have been different. Because the other thing it does, the kids who catch their parents' porn end up looking at their parents differently. So you may be experiencing disrespect and you're wondering, why am I being disrespected? It's because they have seen something about you that is not worth respecting, right? So when you start seeing some of these changes happening, dig in a little deeper before we slide into the whole perversion thing. Somebody's commenting and saying the age at which they're being exposed to the content is also a big risk factor. Yes. Yeah, we were talking about the fact that it is starting so much earlier at the 7-8 years old when they're not able to process that information. Yeah. And yes, like alcohol, the younger they are, the likelihood of dependence. The biggest problem with something like pornography, it is so addictive that a grown-up is not any safer than an adult when it comes to the long run. You know, like in the long run, pornography is so potent that engaging with it is already a downhill trip. Yeah, I've not met anyone who got addicted to pornography and just said, okay, now I'm done, and you know, just stepped out of it. It doesn't happen like that. It's one of the things that actually, what is it called? require serious rehabilitation, if I may call it that. Yeah. So why do kids basically continue using pornography? And I think I want to sort of like start closing down over here and invite some questions. They continue watching pornography because they want to learn about sex, not because they want to watch pornography, because they want to learn about sex. Yes, Mark?
I wanted to say that to answer maybe partly why they continue watching sex, and let me say it from a boy perspective.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you hit puberty and these hormones are in you and they are raging like fire.
Yeah.
You figure out you can actually satisfy yourself. So pornography becomes a stool, so to speak, of masturbation.
Yeah.
And simply that's why they will want to watch more. They want to watch more, not because it's a series and it's continuing and it's nice and there's a storyline we want to follow. No, not really. The end result is that I just want to satisfy myself. So that is the end goal of any, even from the production end of it. They know that they are producing this to help you have a sexual encounter, either with yourself or whatever situation that you're putting yourself into. And that's why it becomes more addictive. If you remove the equation of masturbation from pornography, then pornography loses the stronghold it has.
On guys only, or guys and chicks?
Yes, specifically on guys. For ladies, I don't know. I am not one, so I wouldn't even try and attempt that one. And I've always found it a very interesting thing that because men are visual. Men are created to be attracted by what they see. So that's why you will, in fact, porn is it is produced for men. It is not produced for women, if you've never noticed that.
Even lesbian porn?
Yes. Because it's men who want to see that. Like, that is their fantasy. So for a woman, it would be maybe they want to learn something, they want to see something, as in it's not as automatic. For a guy, it is what I see. Yeah. And what I see hooks me immediately. It's like we were born with a curse. Like, that's normally what I try to explain to people. It's what do you call it? It's a fight. It's something that a man gets into, and when you discover that this is the life you're in, it becomes a fight that you have to fight till your grave, so to speak. Yeah. And now when you grow older, for what the effects, like you're talking about the effects of pornography, what happens is that when like me, I watched people who the people who introduced me into it grow and graduate into stages that I was like, how did you get yourself there? So talking about kids in high school, we are coming back home. I'm in primary school. I'm hearing their stories. Now they are high school. They're telling us. So you can imagine someone from boarding school. They land into town. The first thing they do is look for a prostitute, have sex with a prostitute, then come back home. When you hear that story, you're like, are you out of your mind? But it started because actually, the actors for porn are all recruited from prostitution. Okay. So it is a prostitution industry. So if someone consumes it, the notion of getting a prostitute is not they have money. Yeah. So why not? Like money gives me the power and gives me the choice. In fact, sasa hata naweza chagua mnono, mkubwa, mkonda, mrefu, you know. Yes. Yeah, so for guys, it's a different road to. So trying to make the person understand is that For boys, you have to get them to a place where they learn how to learn self-control, like delayed gratification is the big, if they know how, if they win at delayed gratification, they will have a chance in winning the war of porn becoming addictive.
That is so, because you don't teach delayed gratification using sex. You teach delayed gratification using cookies. You know, you teach you teach it at 2 years old when they want KFC, they want crisps, they want to watch this, they want to buy this, you know, they're crying and throwing a tantrum in a supermarket. That's where you start teaching delayed gratification. By the time you're trying to teach it at the sex stage, you've almost lost the plot.
Yeah, and I guess also for the girls would be teaching value, teaching self-respect, self-value, because basically pornography is degrading women from the start to the finish. Like there's no part a woman is ever glorified or made to look like a Wonder Woman.
But now here then is another thing that you probably brought up last week about social media.
Yes.
If I'm supposed to be teaching my daughter to respect herself, and the media that she's consuming or what she's seeing is showing her that the more outrageous she becomes is the more attractive and acceptable she will be. How do I balance that?
Hey, Sasa, in fact, you've opened the Pandora's box.
Oh, okay. Can I close it? Does Pandora's box close once it is opened?
It might be able to be closed with social media. You know, social media, all of us are in it.
Yeah, for different reasons and on different platforms.
Now, have you ever asked yourself why it is so important for us to have a selfie camera?
You have frozen.
You may freeze, I guess. So, can you hear me? I can continue talking.
Okay. Mark, you froze.
Yes. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. Have you ever asked yourself
why your phone has to have a selfie camera? How many of us use that camera? Most of us are using it right now. Like if you're using your phone in this meeting.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay, fine.
So you get into Zoom meetings a lot, you will use the selfie camera. But for kids, selfie camera is for posting my life. So there becomes a relationship between this camera and the person, which is very addictive. And the person who is creating social media, if you look at Instagram, if you look at Snapchat, if you look at TikTok, it's about me creating something and posting, me creating something and posting. So they have changed the game from you can consume things, but now you can create things.
Yeah.
So now what is out there, and even the recruiting people of these pornographic sites, do you know what they've done? They're like, kitambo tulikuwa tunang'ang'ana kutafuta wasichana ndio waproduce hizi vitu.
What does that mean in English?
Basically, we used to have a recruitment thing for looking for young girls to get into this industry.
Yeah.
Now you can come on or to a platform, see your phone has a camera. The worst thing is that if you are a creator, you can access it for free. If you are a consumer, you have to pay. So what we are looking at right now in terms of now social media is that it has gotten to the place where we are no longer worrying about our kids consuming pornography. We are now worrying about them creating pornography. That's the Pandora's box I was talking about. Because
now they're creating pornography through social media.
And it starts more slowly because if I talk on a video, I talk on a video on Instagram, guess what? I notice that my likes and my numbers are going high. I'm going to twerk harder. I will give you more. Exactly. What have you entered yourself into? Yeah. So it is now gradual. You grow gradually, and then the more you want it, the more you discover there are platforms for you to do this privately.
Yes, with everything. That's how I ended up discovering about the virtuous pedophiles. Not because I'm a pedophile, but because I was looking for information on how is this being justified as we go along. Because there are support groups that are doing that. Somebody is saying some kids have the myth that, or believe the myth that porn is okay since it's not penetrative sex. So they justify their chastity. That's how many
all of us believed that.
Yeah, that, you know, I mean, I'm not having sex, I'm just watching other people having sex. They're the ones with the problem, not me. Yeah, and also
then they discover the biggest sexual organ is your brain.
So it's not even the skin, it's the brain.
Yes.
Yeah, because again, back to, it's coming in through the senses, the eyes and the ears. So kids are actually staying and following pornography to learn about sex. The other really important thing is to belong to a group. So this group can refer to the same group that is trying to say they're chaste, you know, they're remaining virgins, they're waiting for that to happen, or they're boys who are not hanging out with girls. They watch pornography to belong to that group.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So they want to belong to somebody. Yeah. And then the other one is pornography gives them sexual permission and pleasure.
Definitely.
So this comment here is about sexual permission. I'm allowed to do what I want, but because my values say that I need to be a virgin by the time I'm getting married, then I will not have penetrative sex.
Yeah.
But I will do what I can to get these others. But
and in fact, before you go on, you see that one for you don't have to have penetrative sex, but I can play around with any other thing.
Yes.
In high school, that's now the thing that opens the door to gay agenda, like for girls especially. That's where you find a lot of lesbian relations begin and get hooked. You get hooked at that level because it's not, we start at, it's not penetrative. We're just trying to help each other, satisfy each other. So it's not really sex.
Yeah, one of the most painful realizations was that because we have this habit of telling girls, go do your homework in your room, and they're with another kid from school, many parents did not realize that that is one of the places where their children started experimenting with lesbian sex.
Yeah.
Because they're just doing homework in the room. Yeah. And this is really not about casting fear and making us be afraid of everything and remove all doors in our children's bedrooms and drastic measures like that. I feel as though if you taught values and if you walked this journey with them, then you're able to support them through their struggle.
Yeah.
If I may call it that, you know. And because pornography, yes, like what I'm saying, when they watch it, when they start engaging with it, when they start responding to it, it gives them that gratification of they're okay. You know, it shows them that they're okay and gives them some, you know, low-key affirmation, which doesn't always work right. But the fourth main reason why kids keep watching porn is to cope with emotional stress. One day, I think one of the things that we should one day talk about is our children's mental health. I don't know what you guys who are watching think about that, but when and mental health has become a big deal because we neglected it so long that it became the next pandemic. And well, COVID didn't help at all. But if our children are struggling emotionally, and they have a gadget that they can use to ask how to, one of the places they end up getting satisfaction from is pornography. So it's to actually build the emotional, I keep saying, let's go back to preventing the problem instead of trying to sort out, you know, the problem after it has already happened. There's somebody who talked about building a fence at the top of a cliff instead of a hospital at the bottom. You know, stop waiting for our kids to get hurt, then start solving the problem, is prevent it from up there. And so if we are a bit more aware about what's causing them emotional stress, then we'll protect them not just from pornography, but from many other things. So again, I don't want to leave us feeling as though the only thing we need to do is panic about this pornography. It's a big bad wolf, you know, how do I rescue my child? No, let's build the resilience outside of the sexual platform, because you will never be able to compete with the money that is being poured into pushing sexuality, but you can definitely compete for the brain of your child by having conversations with them, by guiding them. And so when we are also keeping tabs on their mental health, helping them articulate their emotions, helping them express themselves in a healthy way or deal with hardship, the other thing parents are falling, the other trap parents are falling into is rescuing their children from all the problems. And when you rescue them, you weaken them. You're not building their resilience. So when they face adversity, then they are unable to cope and therefore start having mental issues and look for different ways of coping. So another big thing is that thing of saying, I just want the pain to go away. If I may address the Christian parents who are going to watch this, or the Christian parents who are on right now, one of the biggest mistakes we make, because I am one of them, is that we assume that just because our children are agreeing to do the things we are telling them to do, they are okay with our instruction. We don't ask them, we tell them. And so what happens is, because they don't want to rock the boat, they want to leave things as they are because, you know, as one of us was saying earlier, I was a good Christian girl. They want to remain good Christian girls and good Christian boys. What they do is internalize the pain. They internalize the frustration, you know. And so when they're doing all of that, they want to make the pain go away. Pornography becomes a very easy way to ease the pain, right? So coping with that mental health is another issue. And that's probably something that one day we shall keep having such conversations. Yeah, so Mark, yes, those are the 4 reasons why kids stay hooked. Any questions?
Yes.
We started a little after 9, so I don't know whether you want to push it for a few minutes or, yeah. Mark, any comments?
Let me say, if you have boys or anyone, any child that is probably what age now? 11, 12. They have already encountered pornography. Don't be guessing about it. They have already encountered it.
Okay, that's a fact.
Yes, a fact. Like don't even struggle to try and see if you know if they are not. If they have not, their friends have already exposed them to, and the struggle is real. Yeah. 2, you might be wondering, so as a parent, how do I help my child? And especially if you're a Christian parent, you might approach it from, this is a bad thing, it's sinful, it is addictive. And if you approach it to them that way, what will end up happening is that you will alienate them from yourself. So this is coming from what I wish I had when I was a young boy and I was already exposed and I had gotten to a place, maybe I wanted to get out, but I didn't know how to. The only way I got out is through church, going to church. And so the first thing you have to understand is our kids are sinners waiting for a savior. Like they have not, and if they've committed themselves to a relationship with God, it's helpful, but they have not gotten to a place where that relationship with God is a formative relationship in their character or behavior. So they will still have that sinful nature still very alive in their lives. And understand, because of our fallen state, when someone encounters pornography and is consuming it, they don't see the problem. To them, it's not a problem.
At that time, it's not a problem,
It's like stealing sugar. Like it's as sweet as sugar. Like me nakula kitu junitamu. So the thing is to normalize the conversation around sexuality, sex, all these things. Just create a way that you can start having these conversations and make them normal. Even if you can get to a level that you joke about some things, it's even better, because once that openness is created, then you can know what level of struggle is there. And for boys, once they can be able to go to someone they can talk to about something, it helps in the process of the stopping. Because now you will always, it will be a start-stop relationship. So
yeah. So probably let me just ask. Let me ask, have you ever worked with someone or engaged with a young boy who was hooked to pornography and then stopped?
Yes. Over my years of dealing with young people, pornography and masturbation is like number one.
Okay.
That's
what practical tips would you give parents of sons, mothers and fathers of sons, on how to, if they were the ones to actually guide this person? Because I know there is a shame of going to your parents.
Yeah.
But if they actually could go to the parent, or even if not the parent, again, back to the whole village thing I was talking about.
That's actually where
you have a village. Okay, yeah. Give us some tips.
Yeah. So you begin to be intentional about and creating so in a village, there's something called a tribe. So pick up certain ages. If there are 9, 10, 11, 12 there, put them together. Like in that village, figure out how you can start putting these boys together. They will naturally put themselves together, but if you can be intentional, you can put them together. Begin to recruit older men and older boys who maybe are like 10 years older than them, to be in their space and to start having these conversations with them. So the easiest place to do that is in church. Church provides the platform for us to create this to tribes and to villages for our kids. So you'll find many churches have like a pre-teen experience and a teen experience, like a ropes experience or those types of things. Get them into those things, because they will get into like a group or a tribe of boys who now an older boy will be assigned to them to start having these conversations with them. How does that help? When a man has another person who they can go to for accountability, and the key here is accountability. If there's someone keeping account of you, they can see through you. And that's what the problem with masculinity is, that men do not want accountability. We do not want to be subject to another man. We do not want to be interrogated. We don't want to be confronted. If you confront, it's a fight. But you see, when they're younger and they learn how to be accountable, you kind of control that masculinity to a level where they are submitted to an older boy who's 10 years older than them, and they can be able to process these struggles with this person. The ideal situation is that this person can work with them since they're 9 to when they're 19, but it's rare to encounter such things. But that's the model that if you get yourself into, it can be of help to this child, because this battle is not something that you will have a conversation for 2 months, 3 months, therapy nini, alafu watawacha forever. There are different stages they'll go through. There's different trauma they'll encounter. They'll be rejected by girls when they're trying to relate with them. They'll be rejected by boys. Sometimes default inakuanga self-gratification. So, and that's how humanly we've been created. So if they have this tribe where they have boys they can talk to, and they have an older boy who can help in the process, or even the same case with the girls, it helps with that process. Yes. So best place is to find this, to have this easily is in churches where this is possible. But if you're in an estate, you may think you can do it in an estate. If you're in a school, You can rally the school to have an extra curricular program that boys
Exactly.
girls meet after, like, and we consult. We say we want this pastor to be coming or this counselor to be coming to be talking to the boys and the girls on a weekly basis or even bi-weekly basis as they're going through their schooling experience. And especially I think at school is even better because that's where they are there forever. Like hapo ndo wanashindanga most of their time, and their key friends are in school. Home, they might go to boarding, so home friendships are not permanent until they finish high school. Then they can pick them from where they were. But utapata mtu mmoja atafly out, mwingine sijui ataenda hustling wapi. So in that stage of from the preteen and the teen stage, figure out how it can be done where they are available the most.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, Asante. Because that sort of like gives us some direction.
Yeah.
On how to go and where to go from here. And probably a thing to really highlight is that, and I think I probably say this so many times, it's broken record, is that it cannot be a one-off affair. It cannot be a one-off conversation. It will require someone to keep engaging and to consistently be in this process of, what is it called? It's protecting your child, but not as much protecting as much as building them to be able to protect themselves.
Yeah.
Because yes, unfortunately, it is starting earlier, but the concentration is actually around teenagehood and youth. That's where the concentration of pornography use is. And so the idea is to look for ways of building that strength, like you're saying, with the village and the tribe and things like that. And the document that I have shared there gives people an opportunity to actually decide how can we engage, because then there's lots of people who are doing this in different forums, not just retro, because there's no way we are able to meet the demand that is available. We are not able to do this like live sessions in Mombasa. Yes, online has managed to help us do a lot of stuff online, but if you'd actually like your kids engaged, at a personal level, I know Mark has the plug. I know Ewagata, who was here last week and the week before, has Y-Hub networks. There are places and forums. Retro is running programs. We especially have a really nice one for girls called Shades of Pink. So really, really, if you would like to have your kids engage deeper with their peers and at a level that they're comfortable basically having some of these conversations, yes, we'll continue giving support for parents, but at the same time, there's opportunities available. So really what that form does is give you a chance to say, this is what I would like, or this is how I would like to engage or operate. Yeah. So any other questions or comments? I do not want to keep people beyond where they had planned to stay. All right. It looks like we've given people so much to think about. Yeah, somebody has said this gives us a lot to think about. What would you say are your highlights as we bring this session to close? For those who have attended all four, or whatever it is that you may have attended, what would you say are your highlights? Any highlights? And yes, you can either unmute yourself or you can send a message.
Is Winnie talking ama ni mimi naona tu ame-unmute lakini simsikii.
Unmute, but maybe just a question, eh? How do you deal with a situation whereby we said like Shalom, you were saying about, you know, like a child who has encountered pornography first with the parents, I mean from the parents, and they've just kept it. But in a situation whereby the parent gets to know that the child has, or rather the child stumbles into a parent watching pornography, how do you have that conversation?
So the child has caught the parent in the act, not found pornography, but caught the parent watching.
Exactly.
How old is the child? Like, let's give a, how old would the child be?
Maybe like 12.
12.
Yeah, so a 12-year-old.
And this is a
boy. Let's say it's a boy, and it's
boy,
is it the dad or the? It's the dad or
the dad.
Who has been found? The dad.
The dad. Yes.
Well, that's a very tricky one, because a 12-year-old boy already has this, what do you call it? Is already at a mature stage where they can understand what they've seen and they've heard. And the dad will be at a place where I think pia umejua nini, like we kind of have this thing where it's been it's between us and we know what it is. So what men will do is that we'll just keep quiet. That thing will be thrown under the carpet, tuendelee na maisha. But for women, that is not how things go. Like there has to be like a, what do you call it? Like an intervention or a conversation or something needs to be done around about. So most of the situations would be the man will not agree to have this conversation. It is the mom probably who will enter and have this conversation with the boy, and try and maybe rescue the situation or process the situation with the child. Also, it depends with the relationship. If the mother and the boy have been, like, they talk frequently and they have a good relationship, they'd be able to process the situation for maybe disappointment, or I can't see my father, I can't look at my father the same again, or that type of situation. But because of the guilt and the shame, especially for the dad cannot bring themselves to come to have that conversation, because it's shameful. It's nimechoma picha yangu, so I know I've messed up, but there's no way I'm bringing myself to have this conversation. It's too embarrassing for me to even start to have that conversation. So also for the mom, it depends with how you can, the relationship you have with your husband, and how you can mitigate that to kind of help him see, dealing with this situation now will help the masculinity of this boy. So if at some point all of you can sit together and have a conversation and be able to process the situation together, then it can help the situation. But most likely that is the ideal situation. Mostly to be done in separate rooms in the house, where people have conversations away and try and mitigate what just happened, the type of situation. But for the boy is to just help him understand, first of all, we are human. You're discovering that even your parents are human and they have their own errors and mistakes. So having now to rescue them from that point and actually accept to see you as human and still respect you as a parent. That's basically my take. You can continue from there.
So I think now that becomes a challenge of the respect.
Yes.
Right? And especially because it's boy catching boy, not boy catching, it's boy catching man. And therefore it's not boy catching mother, or girl catching father.
Yeah.
So when girl, let me just like blow it up a little bit. If girl caught father, then she almost feels violated, because she has this picture of who this man should be.
Yeah.
If girl catches mother, there's a sense of disrespect. When it's the same gender, there's an element of disrespect that may set in. And then again, back to something that we probably did not mention, and I don't think Winnie intimated it. There's different parts of getting caught and different parts of getting the information. So if a kid catches the dad and you get to discover at that point in time, then using Mark's method of having a conversation about it is sensible, But now, if you don't get to talk about it, somebody had mentioned in our earlier conversations, I think if I scroll up to the comments, they had said that, it can also lead, I think it's Carmen who said, it can also lead to drug use to sustain the rush, but it also leads to drug use to deal with the shame. So you find they will look for other coping mechanisms because nobody has talked about it. So the boy sees the guy and yes, catches his father watching porn. And of course, the father doesn't do anything about it. So assumes that it's going to be swept under the carpet, but you don't forget when you have watched pornography. You don't forget when you have caught your father watching pornography. So it's very easy to look for a way to cope. And different ways of coping include either getting into the pornography yourself, as we had mentioned earlier. There's the one of doing drugs or taking alcohol, just something to make the pain go away, which is why I think the other important conversation, like we were saying earlier, is mental health, the mental health of our kids, is that this child will look for a way of coping depending on what that first reaction is. The longer it takes, the worse the situation. So let's say a kid gets exposed. We have talked about 12 years old. A kid gets exposed at 12, and then they don't deal with it until they're 22. Let me just give my plus 10 years. They don't deal with it until they're 22, or they don't deal with it until they're 32. It will actually show up in those stages of their lives because they will have looked for a way of coping, whatever it might be. Some of them may even go into religion. They decide they want to purify all that madness and demons that they have seen. And so they become active members in church. And you're thanking God because of how holy your son has become. Kumbe, he's running away from reality. So even religion can be one of the unhealthy coping mechanisms as far as dealing with pornography is concerned. But all of it depends on boy's background, relationship with the dad, at the point that, by the time he's catching him, and the background in terms of values and how he's been brought up and things like that, and then existing coping mechanisms. Because if he steps out and says, there's something I can't deal with, I don't want to see it, they will be told, this is what you can take to avoid seeing it. This is what you can take to avoid feeling it. And so some of them actually get into drug addiction, alcoholism, and other such crazy behaviors just to hide this thing that they're feeling. So yes, gender matters, but the example that you've given of it's a 12-year-old who's catching his dad, the time at which that information becomes available will affect how you deal with the issue. So there's immediately or much later in life. They'd have different effects. Yeah.
Can I read comments?
Yes, you can go ahead.
So Mercy is saying, my highlight is that this is very real, and like most forums, the way you lay things out is practical and honest.
Thank you.
Wendy Minor says, one of my major highlights is how much I need to work on myself. On me, if I am to have this conversation with my kids, I can't keep burying my head in the sand. This was really clear from day one.
Oh, fantastic. Then there's one also on Facebook that says a highlight is that one has to be patient with someone who's addicted to porn. It's not a quick process, but very, very slow.
Yes.
However, if handled well, they can overcome it.
Yes.
Yeah, because like every other addiction, there is hope. The journey out of pornography is actually a whole lot harder than the journey out
someone
of
who's on drugs.
On other drugs and things like that. And so one of the things that we do is that when talking to kids about some of these things, we go deeper into what would make the child get there. you know,
Yeah.
and we look at one of the things that we need to really focus on, you know, even as we conclude, is the experiences that our children are having. You know,
Yeah.
what our real life experiences are. Let's call things what they are. If family is breaking down, if there's conflict between you and your partner, if, you know, there are certain things, they're called adverse childhood experiences. So there's abuse, there's neglect, and then there's dysfunctionality in the home. All of those things lead our kids to look for answers. And
first of all,
yes,
it's called a traumatic experience because they're
yes,
children.
yes, exactly. So it's trauma. Yeah. And it leads them to seek answers. And we have barely scratched the surface. I think what we did, no, I think we didn't scratch the surface. We just dug right deep inside. We didn't go into the softer things that happen to children. We just jumped into the evolution of sex, which is just one of the ways that then they end up coping. So I guess, you know, like Wendy is saying about working on me, also work on the children's environment, look around and protect them from having to face the trauma in the first place. But if trauma has been experienced already, you know, that kid has caught the dad, there has been a conflict and fights in one place or the other. What else? We had talked about LGBTQ. Now we are having people divorcing, by the way, because one of the partners has decided to be gay, you know, and then the partner wins custody. All right. So how do you get a small boy to go to his dad's place and you be okay with it, and the dad is gay? You get, so you're against LGBTQ, you have divorced because, you know, this is what's going on, but then you have a kid who you would like to bring up one way, but now they have to interact with a parent who has gone another way. So these are the realities that we are in, and rather than try to pretend that they're not happening, is to call them what they are and seek ways of dealing with it. Whether it will be support from parenting, whether it will be therapy for yourself, therapy for the kid, putting the kid in a tribe that tells them, you know what, we are able to overcome this anyway, we are going to survive this. It is, don't shield your child and therefore bring them up not knowing what reality is. Have as deep, unashamed, bold conversations as we have dared to have over the last 1 month. So clearly it's, I mean, it's been enjoyable. I have loved it. I have learned a lot, even by, you know, preparing for this and also interacting with many of you. I got the opportunity to have some people now talk directly, you know, especially like after watching the videos, they're contacting us directly. And yes, we would love to continue having these conversations, but today is actually the last of evolution of sex, at least that part of the series. We are looking at coming back in June with something else. And so probably what you can do is vote between now and then, you know, both on Facebook and Zoom. Right now, I mean, you have the chance, once the meeting is over, it's over, but then guys can vote on Facebook and tell us which topic would you like us to discuss deeper. And it's about being bold about some of these topics. Let's not have conversations that we can just go Google and have answers. Let's look at places that we can have, you know, practical conversations, like you're saying, honest conversations about how to handle this journey. Because yeah, nobody can be a parent on their own, by the way. Nobody can be a parent on their own. I personally have not been. You know, when people were introducing themselves and saying they have children ages 3, etc., I do not have children who are children anymore. My youngest is a young adult. So I'm now at the stage where we are asking the questions of, yeah, so now that they're all young adults, now what? What does adulting look like in a world that is this sexualized? So it's really a journey that we are all going to have to walk. It's an enjoyable one, but nobody can do it alone. And so I'm happy to be part of your journey. I'm happy to have many of you as part of my journey. So I'll hand over to Mark to close for us.
I was enjoying listening to you. So anyway, thank you, Shalom, for creating this forums and platform and making them available to us. Najua PSC, as much as I've dealt with young people and I'm yet to deal with it in my house now.
Oh yeah.
So I'm thankful that you are available to help the process. Yeah, so basically, thank you for doing this. Thank you for everyone coming on board and joining and just helping us have a good time and learn. Yeah, let me pray for us.
Thank you.
Father, we thank you for who you are in our lives. We thank you that you know us and you know our ups and downs, you know our strength, our weaknesses, and you know us to the core of our hearts. You know our struggles, you know our shortcomings, and you know our situations. So my prayer just today is very simple, for you to be able to extend your grace to each and every one of us, to help us in this parenting journey of where we are and the struggles we are looking at, where things are murky and things are difficult and things need to change, yes, but we neither have the tools nor the capacity nor the know-how of how to deal with the situations that are in front of us. So God, we pray for your grace. Give us wisdom, give us understanding, give us knowledge, give us tools that can continue help us. Give us the relationships around us and the friends around us who can help us process these situations and these issues. For in you we find hope, and in you we can take that extra step and we can find that extra strength to continue dealing with these situations that we found in ourselves in. How I pray for every family that is represented here, that they will be able to have a proactive nature from now in terms of these conversations, that they will not watch things happen or hide themselves away from them, that they'll be able to gather courage and begin to do something about the situation that they see in their family and around them, not just with them, with their friends, with their siblings, with their relatives, and continue spreading the message. We thank you and we bless you. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Awesome, guys. I think we'll see you in June. You will know by then what the topics are.
Someone was talking. Who was talking?
No, I think it's Josh who unmuted himself by mistake. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much, guys.
Karibu, karibu. We'll see you in June. But meanwhile, we'll still be sharing short videos and posts as we go along.
Where?
On a retro group page and the Dare to Be Parenting
page?
private group.
I am not in Facebook.
Okay, we shall look for a way of getting you. At least you have registered
YouTube.
for this one. So we'll be passing them on to you. Thank you all for coming.
You know me.
Yes, I know you very well. Thank you. I'll make sure you get the information. Yeah. Awesome. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
All right. You're welcome, even those on Facebook. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.